Joining us in the studio now is Bill Morrow, a Commodore 64 user from Pacifica, California. And behind Bill, Gary, is a table full of synthesizers, all hooked up to a 64.
Bill, you're a very accomplished musician. What is it about this Commodore 64 that makes it a good music computer?
Number one, it's very inexpensive.
Okay.
The other thing is the SID chip, and that's the sound interface device.
Okay, what does the SID chip do?
Well, it makes sound. It has 3 musicians in it, you could say. And these 3 musicians can play individual notes separate, or they can play them simultaneously. We can have a flute and a bass and a violin playing all at the same time.
Okay, and then you can experiment with the different sounds and mix them and so forth.
I can study the attack, delay, and sustain and release.
Okay.
Now, you've got some software in here, some composition software called Master Composer, is it?
Uh-huh.
Show us how that works using the SID chip, Bill.
Well, here you can see I've already entered a few notes.
Okay.
Let me go over here. And I have 3 voices. I've got my musician number 2 here. And you see I have some rest up there. So I have about, I would say I have 16 positions that I can
okay, and if you wanted to go ahead now and listen to that music you would just put in there.
And this is using only a SID chip, right?
Right.
No synthesizers, right?
No, just the Commodore.
Okay.
Power. Okay, you want to listen to?
Yeah.
All right.
And it's showing the notes that it's playing as it goes on, huh? And that's all just coming out of the 64.
As they're playing. That's all coming out of the 64. No help.
And they're the notes you had entered before. This is a little piece of music you wrote in there. Okay, can we turn that off just a second? And I want to ask you now to give us the whole ball game here and hook up all your synthesizers and see if the 64 can handle all of that. So what do we do to do that?
Okay, first of all, I have the MIDI interface hooked to the Commodore, hooked up with the Commodore. And from the MIDI interface, I go through my MIDI through box, which we can see. And from that, I'm hooked up to 1, 2, 3 keyboards, which all are multi-channels. And I have about 14 channels, or tracks. The musician would think of them as tracks, different tracks running. Then we have the drum machine, and we have a sound generator over there, which gives me about 16 tracks.
And what's the software that's controlling all this?
The software is Dr. T's software, and it's a very powerful software. You can record with this just like you're recording in a studio, like they said, take 1 and you play. Or you can insert the notes from...
okay, how about take 1? Let's hear what it sounds like.
Yes, take 1, say, okay.
Tell us what you're doing.
I'm doing an original tune that I and James Anderson co-wrote. Okay.
That's pretty darn good.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Now, let me ask you. You're a musician. What's the pleasure of working with something like the C64? You had told us before you were thinking about getting out of the music business, but now you're back in it.
Well, the pleasure is I don't have to have a lot of musicians to rehearse with. I don't have to tell them play my music simple. I want, and I've got a drummer, this crazy machine who just play all day long. And most of the time I would wear musicians out. I like to rehearse. And these guys say, well, I'm tired.
So as a composer and as a musician, you have more control now.
I have more control.
With pretty little investment, as you said.
Oh, it's a very cheap investment.
Thanks so much for being here, Bill. That's our look at the Commodore 64. Hope we'll see you here again next week on the Computer Chronicles.